Welcome to the Eat Y'all podcast, where we discuss the struggles and successes of the farmers, food producers, and chefs who are working to get better ingredients into restaurants today and to ensure their availability in the future.
Friends, it's not every day that we get to fuse two of my favorite things together in one podcast, but we did it this week. We've got our guests, Allison and Barry Bales, are from Bales Farms right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And it's really interesting. We found out early in our kind of conversations with them about being on the podcast that Barry and I have been in the same room a few times with his musical career as a bassist for one of my favorite artists. So you'll learn a little bit more about that. I got to tell you, it's like hanging out with some old friends, the way this podcast unfolded. And you hear a lot about their farm and their kind of passion for what they're doing, both on the farm and life, how they're raising up the next generation. And really, they survived COVID, so many different things. They had a few plot twists in life. It was just tremendous to visit with them. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. It was fantastic. And I got to say, we're definitely headed up to Tennessee to sit on the porch and have another conversation with them as soon as we can. Thanks for listening. It's my great privilege today to be back. We've had a couple of weeks off. We're back in sort of in person via video with the Bales family up in Tennessee, and it's great to have you guys join us on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Glad to be here.
So go ahead and introduce yourselves, Barry and Allison Bales, and tell us a little bit about your farm, where you are in Tennessee.
Well, I'm Allison, and this is Barry, and we are in Greene County, Tennessee. We are halfway between Knoxville and Bristol, and we have a century farm here, and it's been in Barry's family since 1883.
1883, that's a little piece of history.
1882.
1882, yeah.
1883 is the new
That's the new
show.
Yellowstone thing.
There's a 1883 piece that we're not announcing yet.
Yeah, we're 1 year older than the Yellowstone series, so.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're up in the Smoky Mountains. Our county borders North Carolina. We're an hour from everywhere. We're an hour from Knoxville, hour from Bristol, hour from Asheville, North Carolina. Just over here in God's country.
There you go. There's a guy named Morgan Wallen has a song that says outside of Knoxville. I don't know what town. He said the little town outside of Knoxville. Do you know what town he was talking about?
I think he's from Sneedville.
Is he?
I think so.
Wow. It's hard to get in or out of Sneedville.
Yeah. I mean, don't quote me on that, but
I think that's right.
I think that's right. Where he's from.
Yeah, that's in the middle of
I think
nowhere.
he got into that when he had the sand in his boots. He was trying to tell somebody about that town.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Well, look, so you guys you're farming. Barry, I've heard from the grapevine that you're somewhat of a musician and a songwriter, maybe with a Grammy or more nominations, etc.
Yeah, it's been 30 years in the making. I've been a professional musician for the last 30 years. Various and sundry things. My bread and butter day job, I guess, is been a member of Allison Krause and Union Station. I'm an upright bass player and played and recorded and toured with them since 1990. Done a lot of studio work and different things along the way, and been fortunate to get a few awards along the way.
That's pretty incredible. She's been one of our favorites in our family for a long, long time. So to get to chat with you is a little extra treat for me.
Well, I appreciate it.
So tell me what you guys are doing on the farm side of things.
Well, the quick 30,000 foot overview elevator pitch is we raise grass-fed, grass-finished beef. We raise pastured pork, pastured poultry, and pasture-raised free-range eggs. And we sell direct-to-consumer here in the East Tennessee area, various drop-off locations, non-farm pickup, and through some delivery services as well. So we've been doing that for, about 10 years. When my son was born, our son Marshall, I really wanted him to have a taste of what I had growing up on the farm, and having animals to take care of and responsibilities and knowing where his food came from. And so it's just kind of snowballed from there.
So how many head of livestock do you have right now?
Well, we're in between, sort of, in some cases right now. Like, for example, for the beef, we do, I guess we'd be considered a stocker operation. We buy calves at the end of winter and then process them all in the next winter. So we have a few months. Like right now, we don't have any cattle on the farm, but we'll be getting another batch end of next month. And we got 10 pigs in this batch we got out in the woods right now. And we've got Marshall. They're hard to keep up with because, pasture raised chicken is everywhere, but
that's always a moving target.
It is a moving target. But once upon a time, Marshall, our 14-year-old, he runs the egg operation. He takes care of it completely by himself. And he was running about 400 laying hens. And then we'll do April through July, we'll do about 1,000 broilers on pasture.
Wow. That's a lot of chickens going on there.
It is.
It is. Yeah. We have a lot there at one time. Thankfully it's not for too long.
You're at the farmer's market. Do you sell to chefs? Who's your biggest fan of your farm right now?
Well, we've done a lot of different things and learned different lessons and changed some of the things that we're doing over the years. Right now, we're not doing hardly any wholesale at all. We were selling to a lot of chefs, particularly in the Knoxville area, but what happened with restaurants and chefs when the pandemic hit. So a lot of those folks either permanently or temporarily closed. And so we sort of pivoted to more of a retail, direct to consumer model. And that's kind of what we're focusing on right now.
Yeah. The chefs definitely took it on the chin when the powers that be made a lot of decisions that hurt a lot of businesses. And I know a lot of them took it on the chin and have had a really tough time getting back going. Yeah.
And just especially a lot of the folks that we were working with, and I'm sure it's the same everywhere, it was just so much unknown. They'd open up and then they'd have to close, and then they'd open up again and have to close again, and then they'd open for certain days of the week, and then that didn't work, and they couldn't get anybody to work in the restaurant. And so it's as challenging as it's been for us. I wouldn't trade with them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. Well, and it's such an important thing what you guys are doing, because helping teach Marshall where your food comes from, but being one of those small farms that literally knows your customers. We need thousands more of you guys doing that. And I think it's kind of a great model to, show people, hey, look, you could take however many acres you have and find a animal that loves it and turns into great eggs or great sandwiches, depending on what kind of animal it is.
Right. Well, that's our goal. And I agree wholeheartedly. I really was hit hard by sort of the philosophy of that kind of thing that Wendell Berry was talking about, how it used to be and how it ought to be, that it doesn't need to be as big and centralized as it's become. And there is potential for numerous small farms like us to be able to coexist and supply local healthy meat to our neighbors. And that's what we're trying to preach and educate a lot of people about, as much as we can.
What's been the biggest challenge for you guys? Is it been like finding processors and processing dates and all that sort of thing? Or is it raising the actual animals, finding customers? Like, talk to me about the challenges that you face.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents and I'll let Allison have a word. But yeah, the last couple of years, the processing for sure has been a gigantic challenge. And I'm sure this story is the same everywhere. But for us, there's lots of processors locally that are booked up through, I know there's a few booked up into 2025.
Wow.
And we've had more than a couple go out of business for good. And then one in particular that we were using for poultry, they got out of the poultry business because they were doing so much beef and pork. So yeah, still is a big challenge. Just trying to find a spot wherever you can and trying to plan that much further out. It's definitely an ongoing challenge for sure.
It's kind of like that would be almost a barrier to entry to anybody trying to figure it out because, we had a friend who's a beef farmer, had, I think, 110 steers that he had to just continue to feed, couldn't turn them into the cash that they were supposed to turn into, had to keep them alive. And his processor found other ways that were more profitable than what he had been doing with him for the last few years when things got tight. So yeah, it really, I know it impacted that guy firsthand. It was just kind of heartbreaking because his whole life is in that herd. That's his balance sheet and everything. It's like you got all these checks you can't cash. You just need a couple of them every week to make it through to the freezer. And it was really tough on him.
Yeah. I know of one of the processors that we use pretty regular. He was saying that he had discovered that somebody that had booked a bunch of dates with him was selling those dates on Craigslist.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
How do you combat that?
Well, it sounds like maybe you need to spend a couple $1 million and set up your own spot, get your own USDA processor.
I know. I've never been accused of being too smart, but I think I'm not quite that dumb or
brave or
I don't know.
You kind of have to be just off your rocker a little bit to go, okay, let's do that too.
I know. And that is absolutely something that we need more of, but boy, I'm not the guy.
Yeah. I know some folks who have done that and they built what they thought was way too big for themselves. And next thing you know, they are trying to work extra shifts and trying to figure out every possible way. And that thing is just nonstop, but that is a tough business.
It is for sure. For sure.
So we talked a little bit about the farm side of things, but all good eggs turn into great omelets, right, Allison?
That's right.
So you have a cookbook.
I do.
I understand.
Yeah, I do. Thank you for asking about it. Yep.
So tell me, how did you end up deciding that you needed a cookbook, and kind of what's the story behind the cookbook project?
Well, a couple of years ago, I started writing a blog and would put some recipes on the blog, and that became somewhat popular. And people would say, "Hey, why don't you write a book? Why don't you do this? Why don't you go down that road?" And I just never thought about going down that road. And then we started talking more and more about it. And I thought, well, I'll write some recipes. And then if it doesn't turn into anything besides Marshall having some recipes when he leaves the house and goes out into the world, that might save him from going to Taco Bell a couple of times. And
right.
So I started writing some recipes down, and then we met with a friend of ours, who has a book printing company.
Yeah,
and
graphic design company. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Barry he did not say it, but he's a songwriter. And so he is always self-published. He's always owned his own publishing. So we were comfortable with that aspect, and we just kept taking one step at a time, and then it got printed, and here we are.
That's amazing. So you guys have accomplished something. A lot of people say, people want to write a book, open a restaurant, or, I don't know, there's a couple other main things that a lot of the population wants to do. And you guys basically could supply a restaurant, and you got your own cookbook. What are some of the best, kind of most memorable things in the cookbook as far as recipes go?
Well, I think what we see the most comments on are pimento cheese. I have a white cheddar pimento cheese that is pretty popular. And we have several different options for roasting whole chickens. That used to be a very common way to fix chicken, but very few people know what to do with a whole chicken anymore. And so I walk people through that process. And Barry's got some steak recipes on there and in the book, and some great pork recipes. And then I tell people how I make my apple pie. So those are all pretty popular, it seems like.
I think one of the main things that's really good about this, and it's one of the reasons that we had the desire to do this in the first place, is we got, and continue to do so, but we've always gotten so many questions from people that, you know, are used to going through the drive-through and getting a value meal, and they want to start doing something better, healthier, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to, you know, they're used to boneless, skinless chicken breasts or a Ziploc bag of chicken fingers. So they have, you know, they've got no idea. A lot of people genuinely have no idea what to do with a whole chicken or what to do with an arm roast. So Allison, I think, has done a really good job of walking people through that and giving them the confidence to cook these things for their family and see it as it's not such a daunting endeavor. And not only is it not as hard as they think, it ends up being, you know, like with a whole chicken or a roast or whatever, they can get, if they just have a little direction, they can get so many different meals out of that one cooking time for their family, and it cook one time that week, and then they've got all this leftover food for all these different meals.
Yeah, I grew up with I'm one of 7 kids. I'm the middle, and I didn't know that you could buy chicken in just this or just that, because we never did. It was, you got a whole one, sometimes from the yard.
Yes.
You know, that's a whole new mindset for people to realize that, hey, this comes this way. And there is something great about, obviously you can carve up a turkey or whatever, but the little ends and pieces that you roast off or whatever later and get the seconds and thirds off of are sometimes the best bite on the bird.
Yep.
Absolutely. There's so many good things from a whole chicken, from the meat and the carcass and the bone broth. And it's just, you know, once people get hip to it, you know, and see that, okay, I can do this, then it opens up a whole world of possibilities for them.
For sure. So Allison, the cookbook, I noticed, I don't have a copy, but I was able to kind of flip through and see some of the some interior pages. You've got a thing on biscuits in there,
right?
Talk to me about what makes the perfect biscuit.
Oh, that's a spicy topic for a lot of people. You know, everybody's got their own way, but
only if you put jalapenos in
right.
it.
Yeah. Well, I tried to inspire people to actually start making biscuits, because so many people that I know and I talk to either buy them frozen or buy them from the can. But I show them how they can make, I call them my no-fail biscuits, and super, super easy. And so I think one of the things that makes it succeed, my recipe succeed, is that I freeze my butter and then I grate the butter into the flour, and then I just use flour, I use butter and some milk, and that's it. And a really hot oven with some melted butter on top of the biscuits, and put them in cast iron, and there you go. You got biscuits in about 15 minutes.
Now, is there any, I guess, are you a baking soda or baking powder or a mix of both?
Nope, I don't use, I use
Self-rising
self-rising flour.
flour. Okay. So that's
unsalted butter
built in, and
right.
And I guess salt, huh? Or you use salted butter?
I use unsalted butter and then buttermilk. Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. I'm a big unsalted butter fan, because you can always add salt if you need, but if you've got the salt in the butter, it's already in there. So, yeah.
Now I don't have to buy the cookbook. I just got the secrets from behind the scenes there. That's amazing. So biscuits are one of my favorite things to eat, and cast iron is really the puts that little crust on the bottom of them that you can't find just anywhere. So that's amazing. So you guys work together on the farm, and then I guess you're not You're not a touring musician with Barry when he's doing that, are you?
Nope. When he is on the road, I'm still here on the farm.
So what's it been like for you guys? I work with my spouse, and what's it like working together? Is there a secret to success in that front? Working with your spouse?
Well, by education, I'm a physical therapist. So when we got married, I was a full-time physical therapist. And then after we had Marshall, we were married 10 years and had Marshall. And as he was growing from an infant to a toddler, we decided that I would probably homeschool him. And so when he started school, I left my career as a physical therapist and came home. And then we've grown slowly out of that into working together. And I'm sure it's a dream for Barry.
I think the key to success is that your better half is incredibly patient and forgiving because, you've seen that T-shirt about, I'm sorry for what I said when we were working cattle. That's the story of our lives. It's like,
I'm so mean when we move cattle.
No, you're the one that gets yelled at, but not on purpose.
There's a song lyric. I don't know if y'all have heard of Ashley McBride. Probably know her. Probably lives down the street from you.
No, I know. Yeah.
She has a song called Andy, I Can't Live Without You, which, oddly enough is my name, but it's almost like she knew me. But there's this line that says, I got reasons to cry. I can't think of, or can't remember which one. You don't ask no questions. You just hold me till I'm done. I've loved that song and that line because there's, sometimes you just, as a husband, you're like, okay. And sometimes you just kind of wait and everything kind of figures itself out. And the more you talk, the worse. It's just like digging a hole.
Oh yeah.
That you're standing in. It only gets deeper.
Yeah. I'm really good at that. I think one of the things that really has helped us and makes it work is knowing our jobs and knowing what our strong suits are. I'm mainly production, and Allison is a people person. She's never met a stranger. Everybody loves her. So naturally, she's the one that is the face. She does all the deliveries. She talks to people. So, it works out. It's worked out really good that way.
But early on, we've kind of grown into that, but early on, it was a little more difficult and stressful, I think. Anytime you are growing into a job, whatever job that is, whether that's physical therapy or farming or parenthood or whatever it is, you've got to find your place. And until you find your lane and start staying in that lane, it's pretty stressful. So it's been a learning curve for sure. But hopefully we're getting better.
Oh, yeah.
I know that I'm constantly learning. And I would say the last year, trying to learn. I've been at it 14 years or so and realizing that, okay, you got to keep practicing, probably like the guitar, probably like the bass, whatever. It's, you put it down for too long or you quit paying attention. The practicing is definitely key. It sounds like y'all have kind of got that figured out.
Well, I definitely agree with that. And, if you ever get to the point where you think you've arrived or that you know everything you need to know, then, that's the beginning of the end because you never get there. And you gotta keep learning, keep trying to move forward and get better and do things better. So yeah, for sure. It's a never ending thing.
What was the pandemic like for you guys in your, farm wise? And I guess technically we're still in a pandemic. I'm using air quotes because, it's obviously it's affected a lot of people and its effects are still out there in a lot of ways. But what was that like? Was that something where you guys were hunkered down on the farm for days on end, or did life go on? Or
well, both. That's kind of our, at least the non-musical part. That's kind of our lives. It's not uncommon for me to go 3 or 4 days and never go past the mailbox. So that part of it didn't change. But we were like a lot of producers. March of 2021, right? Or 20?
Well, March.
It's all a blur now.
Yeah. So I will say in February of 2020, Barry had plans for a huge tour that summer, and we were really going to step back and let the land rest. And
I didn't have any real plans. Was already moving towards not leaving many animals here for Allison to take care of while I was on tour. So,
and then we were still selling pre-pandemic. Again, February 2020, about 75% of our business was chefs. And we were in a lot of restaurants and grocery stores. So then March 2020 hit. Barry's tours got postponed and then canceled. We saw all of the restaurants shut down, and immediately our retail sales skyrocketed. And so that was a huge blessing that we really did not even have a week where we weren't moving product, but it changed so much and so quickly. It went from what we knew and what we thought we would be doing and we would continue to do to something totally new. And we went through a lot of product really quickly.
We had to pivot really, really quickly. I mean, as fast as we would walk to the printer to pull off an invoice, 5 more would come in through email. And it was literally, we were just walking back and forth from the computer to the printer. And then, we'd go and spend an entire day in the walk-in packing orders.
And it's just us. So yeah, we had a lot of changes. We had a lot of blessings. I mean, it was difficult, and there are still difficulties that we are dealing with, like with the processors, like those kinds of difficulties. But there's also been great blessings that have come out of it, and big changes too. Obviously, one of the big changes is Barry's been home this whole time. So that's been really great for our family, but it has been different for him, obviously, professionally.
Well, the farm thing, we got back into it for the reasons I stated earlier about, wanting Marshall to learn things, but also I've always wanted to do this more. And it kind of, the idea was kind of an eventual exit strategy from touring and being gone from home and all that, and sort of, okay, well, this is what I'll do when I retire. But, it's always been in the works. We just didn't realize it would be, sort of foisted upon us at this level this quickly. So it's definitely been a learning experience and a chance to sort of pivot and try to get things up and running. But it's been, even with all the challenges and everything, it's been great. I wouldn't say that anything, I wouldn't say there's any long-term big picture negatives from all that we've been through the last few years.
Although we do have a teenager, so he probably sees some long-term negatives to us being around all the time.
Oh yeah.
That's true. And Barry said I hadn't been past the mailbox in 3 days at a time. That almost sounds like a song lyric.
Yeah. If I can get all my chores done, I need to work on that.
That's I love that picture though, because there's been times, I know sometimes we don't have acreage right now, but when you just don't leave the house for several days and you're just in a house and you don't have a couple acres or a couple hundred acres to go get out of the house, it's not good. And I love being home, but man, it's great to get out. We live about half a mile from the beach, so we take a little golf cart down to the beach and just go sit and watch the waves do whatever they do and watch the sun do what it does. And it's something really therapeutic about that. And whether you're, going to the back 40 and doing that or the beach or something, it's really, I don't know, there's something special about it.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah. If it wasn't for having the farm to actually get out on and work and most evenings when the weather's nice, I'll get out on the Ranger and take the dogs for a run and just kind of just clear my head and just go out and watch the sunset and drive around, check fences and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's really sure nice to be able to have that opportunity.
And that was such a great blessing for the last 2 years for Marshall also, because there would be hours that he would be able to get out and explore and go for hikes and climb trees and not have to be inside all the time with us. And he could really spread his wings and just go and do his own thing besides all of the chickens.
What do you think the most important thing Marshall has taken away from being part of a farm who's selling their products to end consumers, raising food like you guys are doing?
I think I'll let Allison say if she has a different idea. My thought and my hope is that the biggest thing that he's going to take away from this is a work ethic and not being afraid of work and realizing that hard work is part of life and it's part of being successful, and that if you know how to work and you know how to approach a situation, if you've got like with him, for example, the other day, we've got a little motorized deal that automatically opens the nest boxes in the mornings. It's on a timer, and it was on the fritz, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And so finally I said, all right, it's up to you. You've got to figure it out and fix it. And he did. So, to being able to meet those challenges and not just be at somebody else's mercy when it comes to fixing whatever the problem is or addressing the problem that you're dealing with, and just being able to put your head down and get it done.
I think a couple of things that he's learning. One is responsibility, because he's got 400-ish animals whose lives depend on him. And so the responsibility, and I think that this goes back to what I have heard Wendell Berry say before, is the sense of belonging in a cohesive, I don't want to say ecosystem, but community where you have place and you have value because of your responsibility and because of your job. So I think responsibility, and then he's getting a really good education in dealing with people and customer service, and just one-on-one having a rapport with people that if he didn't have this business, he would not be dealing with the people that he's dealing with. He goes with me. He's 14. So the only thing that we do is actually drive him to deliver his eggs. So when we go to a grocery store to deliver the eggs, he's talking with those people, with those professional people who are owners and managers of the grocery store. And then when we go to a restaurant, he's dealing with the chef, and he's, having to talk to them. And then he's also dealing with his regular retail customers. And so I think those two things, responsibility and communication, I think those are two big pluses to having a business at any age, but especially at an early age.
Yeah, I love that. Do you feel like Barry, when he does kind of get over the hump of, okay, there was something broken, I fixed it, that he comes back in, his shirt's a little tighter across his chest as he walks in the door? Hey, Daddy, guess what I did?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something that I try to set him up for success in those things like that. A friend of mine, slightly older than me, that known him for a long time, and we've talked about it, always going to him with asking for advice on kid, raising the family, and, Marshall's doing this and I don't know what to do. And his recurring phrase on being a parent is, your job, it comes down to help them through it. And so that's, I've really taken that to heart. I don't do a great job of it all the time, but that definitely enters into what you said, set them up for success give them the tools they need to be successful. And that's going to, exponentially grow their self-confidence and their ability to do it again and again and again.
Yeah. As opposed to do it for them, which completely just emasculates them. And it's like, okay, well, I'll just wait. Daddy will fix it.
Right. We
always talk about the kids. Mariana loves to say it's like a hot potato. They want to come tell you their problem, and you don't have to like solve it. You just have to hold it and go, okay, tell me more. And then, you hold the hot potato, and sometimes that's all they need is just to get off their chest that, hey, there's a problem. And we have a 16-year-old daughter who loves to, she has a lot of words. She loves to share. Kate, if you're listening, baby, I love you. But she loves to share all about, various topics. And you just listen, and eventually she may ask the question like, so what do you think? But usually it's just, I need to talk about it. And then they process it themselves. So that's really fun. Well, look, we're going to jump into the lightning round in a couple minutes and continue on here in the Eat Y'all podcast with Barry and Allison Bales. You're listening to the Eat Y'all podcast. All right, so we can go two ways here. One, Barry, I had a fun couple of lines I was going to see if you could work into a song.
Oh, wow.
Kind of on the spot songwriting, because it's not often we get to interview a songwriter and a farmer and a cookbook author all at the same time. So I have the words pork on a fork and goat on a rope. Do you think you could? Y'all don't have goats, but I think goat on a rope should be in more songs somewhere.
It's
almost like a cliche, which a lot of great songs are built off a cliche.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a real life thing. We did have goats for a while, long enough to realize that if you want to keep them around, they need to be on a rope. And
you need plenty of, just wild, crazy bushes or something for them to chew up, because they're going to eat everything all the way down to the ground.
Yep.
I heard a guy, this may be commonly bandied about, but I heard a guy say one time, if your fence will hold water, it'll hold a goat.
We had goats as a kid, and I'll never forget. We had like a 6.5 foot, the fences that have the bigger holes at the bottom, and I think they call it hog wire. Yeah. It was big at the top and got smaller down at the bottom. So, because obviously you didn't need the super small holes at the very top. And we milked them. Specifically, my oldest brother, Jeremy, milked them. And we had this one named Mariah, one named Persistence. And one time I'll never forget, he milked the goats. He has the bucket. He's walking back to the house. It was about a 300-yard walk. And he may have had a Walkman on. I don't even know. But he was about to walk in the back door, and he realized that the goat was literally like right behind him, about to walk in the house. And she had jumped the fence and was just like, hey, wherever you're going, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that was a goat that needed to be on the rope for sure. The other thing I had written down was what was the best rhyme scheme for the word tractor? Because factor, that's kind of tough. But
tractor and smackter, maybe. Talking about the animal handling earlier,
yeah,
and referring to a goat. Probably not a human female.
Absolutely, yeah. I see Allison's as entertained with that as I am. I did tell I was like, I think I might ask him. She was like, okay. So, honey, that was for you. I'm sure you love that part. I dabble in music, nothing published, but it's always been fun to just have that outlet. So I thought I would pull that out of the hat and see what you did with it. So you did well.
That's the goal is if you're having fun with music, you're winning at it, no matter what your situation. My dad, he was the reason I started playing. He was a really good guitar player, good singer, but he just did it in the living room at night after supper for his own enjoyment. And that's all you can, if you've got that, you got it made.
Yeah. So who is, and I kind of want to ask both of you. I'll start with you, Allison. Who's your hero? Who do you aspire to look up to and kind of emulate in life?
Wow, that is a really good question. I have been raised by some really great folks, and my parents they are solid humans, like they live their lives to be blessings to people and to bring joy and encouragement to people. And they're really passionate about strong relationships and strong friendships and living at peace with people and going to bed at night knowing that I did the best I could today and I did something today to bring a smile to somebody's face. And I think that, if you can do that, if you can leave the world better than you found it, your little corner of the world, man, I think that's probably what we're here for, and so I would say them, and I've worked with a lot of great people and I've learned from a lot of great teachers. And so, I would say that I've got a lot of people, but honestly, probably my parents would be a good choice. I'm still in contact and communicate a lot with some of my college professors. And so, I've got people in my life who I've been privileged to walk with over the long haul. And, so, people that you're able to walk with integrity and walk with purpose and joy and encouragement for 30 or 40 years, that means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And you sound like you're in the world I am where you collect. Some people have a Rolodex that's maybe 200 or 300 deep. And if you go 299, if you're going to go 301, you got to rip somebody out and put a new one in. I just collect. I'm like, it's, I just add another one. It sounds like you're in that ballpark of just, right. Hey, keep maintaining whatever friendships and relationships you can.
Right. When I am around quality humans, I would just want to keep them in my circle, and I want to have more and more time with them and more exposure to them and learn from them and grow with them and grow because of them.
What was the thing that got you in the kitchen the first time? Was it being told like, hey, go cook? Or was it part of that you kind of got creative, inspired, or was it a family member? What started you down that path?
Early on, I would say my maternal grandmother, she was an awesome cook and she had to do it because they didn't have a lot. And man, she was great. And she was also a great teacher and a great encourager. And she had a lot of patience. And so she taught me to love the process of cooking. And also, when I finally learned that, man, feeding people is a really great way to love them, and it's a great way to serve them, and that food brings people together, I got really passionate about it then, and that was probably as an adult. And so Barry has been a really patient eater because I've made a lot of bad food in my time, and I've made a lot of flat, hard biscuits that you could use as like clay pigeons or something probably. And you could do a lot with them, but you couldn't eat them. And so he's been really patient with me. And so that also has helped me, just that he's been there encouraging me and cheering me on and saying, okay, this is really great. And what about this? And think about that. And, so
I don't think it's as much that you were a bad cook. I think it's just we were at a different point in our lives to where, you were working and would come home and cook, and it was, it was less of a I'm going to cook a whole chicken from scratch kind of thing. It was more convenient food, as working couples will do. So as you have been here, staying home, working here on the farm and putting more time into quote unquote less convenient type meals, yeah, it's not been a sacrifice for me at all.
Well, and that's one thing that I wanted to do in this cookbook is because I've been on both sides of it. Now I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I have been a full-time caregiver in the healthcare system and, working 60 hours a week. And I worked an hour from where we live. And so, I was busting it throughout the week. And so I understand the need to fix something one time on the weekend and then have it easy to grab and to heat up or to use in another way throughout the week. So yeah, Barry's comment just reminded me that I wanted to say that. So thanks.
It's funny how, you're talking about cooking and that kind of the process of learning how to cook. There's this timing thing that, as you were describing that, when I'm cooking breakfast, I do it for Kate and all her friends all the time. I've taught tons of kids how to cook breakfast and, waffles, pancakes, bacon, eggs, whatever. But if you don't preheat the oven or if you don't preheat the waffle irons and start that first and then do the next thing and the next thing, everything's ready at a different time and then it's not great. And so I was thinking about that kind of the ballet you have to do. And it reminded me of, in the musical world, like if you don't come in at the right time, it's, everything's disjointed. And so there's such a tremendous skill that, chefs and home cooks, et cetera, all have to not just be able to prepare the chicken, but also if you're cooking asparagus to go with it, don't start them an hour ahead, depending on how you're cooking them.
Yeah. You'll have asparagus soup.
Does your cookbook address some of those things too, as far as like, hey, remember to do this in this process and kind of give people that, because a lot of times it's like the recipe, but there's here's the skill of how to make the meal as opposed to the ingredient.
I think Allison did a really good job on that kind of thing in this cookbook because it's a lot more than just recipes. Every recipe she wrote a comment or a story or something about it that goes along with it that speaks to things like what you're talking about. Plus there's sections in there on, here's what to have in your pantry. Here's how to stock your pantry so that you have what you need and you don't need a bunch of weird stuff that you got to order off of Amazon that comes from South Africa or whatever. But here's the basics. Stock your pantry with these things, have these types of cooking utensils and pots. It's just it's kind of a playbook for getting back into our little phrase for it is taking back over your kitchen. It's how to get the things you need and not worry about the things that you don't need to just be able to do this and do it easily and be prepared.
I have a bunch of cookbooks that I don't really use because I can't get the ingredients. And I didn't want it to be that way. I want to encourage people that you can feed your family, feed your friends really well with not too much time and not too much effort. And it doesn't have to be some idea that you can't grasp. It's very attainable. And a lot of times you can make a really great meal on a Tuesday night just as quickly as if you drove to your local fast food restaurant and went through and grabbed that bag through the window. You can have a really great meal at home. And that just, I feel like that brings with it, that home cooked meal brings with it so much more than just what you're putting on the table. You're going to sit down, you're going to talk about your day, and you're going to have great questions from your 16-year-old daughter, and you might have one or two comments from a 14-year-old son. And, there's a lot to be said for that, to love people well with food and to bring them together sitting around a table. It's more than just what you're eating, but that's a good starting point. So yeah, I do.
Love how you said that. And you were talking about all the different ingredients and things. I've cooked so many recipes that have, they have an eighth of a teaspoon of something that you really don't even taste. And it's just like the recipe developer thought it was a good idea to add one more thing to the shopping list. And I've hewn so many things down to what are the basics that you're actually going to taste. And simple tastes really, really good.
Mm-hmm. And if you're using really high quality foods, you don't really need a lot of additions. The food speaks for itself. We say that
we routinely, part of it is because we're always R&D. We want to know how the beef tastes, how the pork tastes, how the chicken tastes. But honestly, most of the time, like when I do steaks, I put them on the grill, olive oil, salt and pepper. Chicken, buttermilk chicken for the most part.
It's buttermilk and salt.
Yeah, and
that's it.
Because it's so, it's so high quality and it's so good as it is. I feel like it's a crime to cover it up.
100% of the time, and this is not a joke, 100% of the time, when I teach someone how to do a buttermilk chicken, which is you open a Ziploc bag, you put the whole chicken in, you put a little salt in the bag, you put buttermilk, or if you don't have buttermilk, just milk in the bag, let it go, let it sit there in the refrigerator for about 8 hours, take it out, rinse it off, put a little bit more salt on. And 100% of the time, people will say, that's the best chicken I've ever tasted. And it's so simple. It's so simple. You don't have to measure anything out. You don't even, if you don't want to touch the chicken, you can just throw the chicken in the bag. I mean, it is the easiest. I have a good friend and she's a vegetarian and her husband is a meat eater. And so she really does not want to spend a lot of time with making meat. And that is she makes a roasted chicken, a buttermilk chicken every week for him. That is something she prepares every week. And it's so easy for her. And it is great.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the simplicity of recipes. Just really can be. I mean, it can be the thing. And it makes it easy to repeat too.
Yeah.
If you have 47 different ingredients, and for the chefs in the restaurant, every time you add one more element to the plate, it's 18 seconds of time before it gets out the window, and so you stack 10 of those, and all of a sudden it's very, very complicated to serve a busy restaurant with super complicated. You got to hire a lot more staff. So it's kind of this boils down to the same thing when you were talking about cooking it quickly at home. Simple can be really, really, really good. So, well, look, guys, I want to go into the lightning round. These are some really hard-hitting questions. It's going to be pretty difficult. It's open book. If you need to open a textbook or phone book or cookbook, you can. But we'll do this. Y'all can both answer, or you can collaborate and decide if you want to. But the first, and Allison may have heard the podcast, so she's like knows the first answer and whether it's right or wrong. Biscuits or cornbread?
Biscuits.
Cornbread.
He's got one wrong already. Favorite cut of steak?
Ribeye.
Probably ribeye.
Favorite barbecue? And that would be brisket, ribs, pulled pork, smoked chicken.
Pulled pork.
Pulled pork.
Pulled pork. I love that. Best barbecue sauce? Is it you go red or white?
Pork red.
Yeah, I go red. Yeah, molasses based.
So do you do white on chicken, Allison?
I do have a white barbecue sauce for chicken and for beef, for brisket.
Really? White for brisket?
Yes.
Yeah. So I make, and that's in the cookbook, the recipe for both of those. But for brisket, I will do, when we have people over and Barry does brisket, it's awesome. He smokes it, and then I'll drizzle both over, both the red and the white.
So then what does that make it? A red and white combined?
Yeah. Well, I don't combine them. I'll just drizzle them over and layer them. But gotcha. It's good. Yeah. White barbecue sauce is really great on beef, I think.
We have we've kind of made like a very kind of a spicy black pepper, a little red pepper flake, garlic, mayonnaise, and lemon or lime, depending on what you have in the cabinet, and use that on like a brisket sandwich. But usually that ends up on chicken.
Yeah.
But there may be no wrong way to do it, except for biscuits are better than cornbread. All right, do you guys have a favorite beverage that's not water?
Oh, I'm prone to like, I'm a pretty big bourbon fan.
He is a bourbon fan. I don't know. I mean, I'll do about anything.
You like champagne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is true.
There you go.
Life is better with bubbles.
Champagne works.
Yes.
Yeah, it's either one extreme or the other for us usually, because we don't drink soft drinks.
Don't drink a lot of sweet tea.
The only
anymore.
time I drink sweet tea is when I'm eating barbecue. But yeah,
coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could end every day with champagne, with just a glass of champagne, you're probably living a really good life.
You're probably doing okay at that point. Barry, do you have a favorite bourbon brand?
Well, I'm not to sound like everybody else that's jumped on the bourbon wagon in the last few years. I'll be glad when bourbon is not popular anymore.
Me too.
I really like Weller Special Reserve. And I was fortunate enough to get the real scoop on all that. One of my friends is Julian Van Winkle's son-in-law, and we've been on a few quail hunts together. And to hear, to be standing there and have Julian tell you the history and tell you the makeup, and well, here's this, and this is the same as this, and it's pretty interesting. But as anybody that likes bourbon knows, it's getting really hard to find. So yeah, I'm trying to change over and make a point of finding sleeper bottles,
I know. And then you can't tell anybody, but you want to, because it's really good. And you're like, hey, this was a steal at $36.
Yeah.
That's right. What's your go-to?
So my go-to has been Weller since, I don't know, the last 6 years. I've loved Weller Special Reserve. My probably favorite ever was the William LaRue Weller, which is the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection.
Yep.
Kind of third tier Weller. I love that. But easy to find is something like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, that's a little easier to get your hands on than some things. But I had a friend, Barry, you'll love this. He texted me yesterday and said, hey, maybe it was the day before yesterday because the liquor stores are closed on Sunday. But he said, hey, I just scored big. He got a Blanton's for $79 and he paid $110 for a Colonel Taylor, just regular, E.H. Taylor.
Yeah.
Not bottled in bond, not just the regular one. And I was like, I could see the Blantons being up there, but I paid $49 the last time I bought a Colonel Taylor. And, I love the tube and the whole thing, but, he was super excited about that. And I'm just like, what have we done? It's doubled in the last 4 years.
Oh, I know. Our local, the guy that runs the liquor store where we go, he knows that I like good bourbon, and he does a really good job of keeping me supplied. If something good comes in, he'll call me or he'll set it back till I come in the next time. He got me a Weller 12 for Christmas that Allison put under the tree. But I was in there, it's like you said, it's the trickle down thing. I walked in one day and he looks around, like he's on the street corner about to do a drug deal. He looks to the left, looks to the right, and he lowers his voice and he said, hey, I've got a bottle of Buffalo Trace back here if you want it. I was like, is that where we've come to, where the Buffalo Trace is behind the counter and super rare now?
That's amazing. Yeah. Tennessee, Mississippi, not one of the favored states by the allocation gods.
No, the last time I couldn't believe it. The last time I was in Texas, it wasn't the last time, but I was going on I'd flown in to Abilene and was going on a turkey hunt. And so got my rental car and drove to the first liquor store that I found to pick up something to take to camp. I walked in and they had like literally 40 bottles of Special Reserve. And I was flying and I was like, I can maybe get away with taking a bottle, but
that's worth buying a case and putting it as a checked back, buying a suitcase and putting it in there.
Yeah, no kidding. I should have for sure, but I think that's a pretty common thing in Texas these days.
My wife and I have gone on many road trips in South Georgia and South Texas. I stop at every bars on the door. I tell her, hey,
worst part of
you might
town.
want to put one in the chamber when I go in there just in case.
Yep.
If I come running out, the car's cranked. And you never know what you'll find. I mean, crazy things. I went to a place one time and they had like 6 pints of Weller in the little cool pint, which I had never seen in my life.
No.
Hadn't seen it again. And I bought all of them. The liquor store owner was like, "Oh yeah, you really found a good deal here. These are, nobody here knows what these are."
Yeah.
Like, well, thank you. I'll take them all. I was like, "Do you mind if I buy them all?" And he's like, "No, everything I have is for sale." I'm like, "Yes, sir."
I did that the other day back in December. I was going to Arkansas duck hunting and stopped at a place like that. And I swung the door open. And as I did, I looked back in the back, and up on the very top, there was a 1.75 of Special Reserve. There was a tube of E.H. Taylor, and there was a bottle of Blanton's. And I said, "Yes, please. I'll take them."
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So continuing on the lightning round, I love rabbit trails, and I love hunting too. So that works out good. You can have dinner with any 3 people. So Allison, we're going to tag team this. First of all, what are you cooking? And Barry, who are you inviting? You can invite anybody living or dead throughout history.
Wow. That's big.
I'm going to let you decide who you're coming, because if it's the queen, and she might need to change her menu.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody living or dead. Well, I'm a sentimental type, and they're the reason that I'm here on this farm. 2 of them would be my grandparents. So, I'll
assume Allison's going to be there because she's cooking. So
yes,
you don't have to waste a pick on her.
No. I was, as I'm thinking of my third, I'll let her answer.
I would say we would probably put the buttermilk chicken up. I mean, I stand by it. It's,
well, who would you invite if it was up to you?
Well, I'm picking the food. You're picking the people.
All right.
Yeah. So, I'm sticking with that.
What are your side dishes, Allison?
Well, I would definitely, for his grandmother, I'd see if she would like my biscuits. I'd probably pull out some, I do some Brussels sprouts that I'm really proud of. And I really like to make them because people always think that they don't like Brussels sprouts. And so a lot of times I put them in the food processor and kind of shave them up a little bit so people don't think they're Brussels sprouts. And they say, "Oh, these are great." And then I'll say, "See, it's Brussels sprouts." Mm-hmm. And so I'd probably do that, and some potatoes some way, and maybe some roasted potatoes and some biscuits and apple pie with ice cream. Would your grandparents like that?
Yeah, they'd love it.
Yeah. So you got one more pick?
That's incredibly hard to narrow down, and we laugh about this kind of thing, people trying to brown nose with certain answers. So because of that, I'm not going to say Jesus.
You could say Dolly. We could have Dolly.
Well, Dolly would be good. Or, something, one I'd never thought of before until this question, but George Washington, daggone, he started a country.
He did.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting conversation.
And I stole some of this format for the lightning round from the guys that have a website called the Babylon Bee.
Oh yeah,
who stole it from another guy who has a podcast about smoking cigars, and they have the caveat you can't invite Jesus.
Yeah,
because it's like, well, everybody would say that.
Yeah.
On their Babylon Bee podcast. So.
Well, we always use that because if anybody, we jokingly, for that very reason, if somebody asks us, well, what's your favorite book? We always say, "Oh, the Bible." So that's 2 things. You can't say you'd invite Jesus, and your favorite book can't be the Bible.
Yeah. You can just throw the caveat other than.
Right.
All right. So a couple more. I know you guys got to go, and so let's start with this. So Barry, Allison gets a call from me, and it's 2 a.m, and I say, "Look, I need you to come bring bail money. Barry's been arrested." What does she automatically think you did?
I would say she's going to be surprised, first of all, but she's probably going to think Well, he and his friends from high school have gotten together and they've had too much to drink and they've run off at the mouth and it's gotten them in a fight or it's gotten them kicked out of someplace or something like that. I'm guessing.
All right, so Allison, if we had to do the same phone call the other way, is there anything Barry could possibly imagine you'd be arrested for?
Go ahead.
I don't think so.
You probably
Could I be arrested?
You better not ever get in that situation, because if I get that phone call and it's not actually you on the other end, I'm probably going to say, there's no way, this is a prank call, and hang up and go back to sleep. And you'll have to spend the night in jail.
There you go. You're not a speeder that's going 35 over or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Well, she's not afraid to go.
Well, we call him Papa. He drives really, really
I
slow.
go 5 miles over the speed limit.
5 miles under the speed limit.
No.
And I do go about 5 miles over the speed limit. But usually
Honestly,
I'm a rule follower.
Well, I do drive slow around here now because there's so many, and it's not just the people moving in here, but there's just so many yahoos around here that think that they need to be driving 75 down the country road in front of the farm or wherever, on roads that don't need to be that way. So I kind of run a rolling roadblock.
There you go. Rolling roadblock. I love it. All right. So we're going to wrap up on this one. So if you guys are back on the podcast a year from today and we're celebrating, we got Barry's Weller 12 pulled out and Allison's, I don't know, Dom Perignon or whatever your favorite top shelf reach champagne is. What are we celebrating? What have you guys accomplished in the end of 2022 and into 2023?
I think for me that we're still here and that we're still doing it and we still like each other. I think, honestly, I mean, I know that sounds maybe that's not lofty enough, but honestly, if we can still be here and still be doing it and still be happy and in love and everybody safe and healthy, I think in the times that we're living in, that's something for me to celebrate.
I agree. We talk about that quite a bit is, well, what have what have we done? We talk about our goals and particularly after the fact, what did we do this year that was good? Did we blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times we talk about, well, one thing I'm happy about is that we're still in business. We're still doing this. We're still here. There's lots of things that we could say, like we definitely have plans and goals for the business and different things that we want to do and hope to have accomplished by the end of next year or whatever. And some of those hopefully will definitely enter into that. But, I think I agree with Allison in that as long as we're still here doing this, and still love it and still putting out a quality product, continuing to take care of the land to make it better than we found it, and continuing to teach Marshall in the way that he's learning now, that's a gigantic success in my book.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. We'll leave it right there. Fantastic. It's been such a treat to have you guys on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and really appreciate all that you're doing for the farming community, for the culinary community, and teaching people how to use good ingredients. And it's been my treat to have you guys on. It really has.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having us. And we would love to have you up and your family up. Y'all should come up and hang out sometime, and we'll get some bourbon and you all can have a few sips.
Sit on the porch and have a cigar.
Yeah. Watch the world go by. Look at the Smoky Mountains, and we're not too far. Y'all can go down and hang out at Gatlinburg, Dollywood, Pigeon Forge, all those things.
We're not scared to do it, and we will. We'll be in touch because that's we travel around, and sometimes with Kate, sometimes without her, depending on what her schedule is doing. But that'd be a lot of fun. It'd be a real hoot to get together.
Yeah. Come on, we're always here.
You've been listening to the Eat Y'all podcast, hosted by Eat Y'all founder and Chief Relationship Officer Andy Chapman. you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to us if you'd join us in our mission to save family farms by subscribing and leaving a review. Even better, share this episode and follow us on your favorite social media account at Let's Eat, Y'all.